we've been talking about the how challenging can this move to Portugal can be. Is there anything particular that you would advise someone who is thinking about moving to Portugal that you consider that's important to consider in this move? Let's say for an American who is coming to Portugal, is there a...
Sure. I think there's a practical one and there's an emotional one. And the practical one is the emotional one I've already talked about. So I'm actually going to talk more about the practical one, the emotional one, and it's going to sound self-serving, but it doesn't have to be us. I mean, it's like do your homework because it will help you feel more confident in your decisions. It is about learning, but it's also making sure you kind of get the lay of the land and being open to learning all that new stuff. The practical one for Americans, and it's come up over the past 2 years, I think it's become more something more that I try my best to guide people on, and that is finances and taxes. So for Americans, since we're so lucky that we get to pay taxes and we get to file taxes every year in the United States, plus in Portugal as foreign residents. And now with NHR, gone, even though there might be something new coming up to replace it, we never know. I find that a lot of people have moved here without doing their financial homework and without planning, even if they are going to do NHR, without planning like what happens after that. And the other things with Americans is there's differences in the kind of expertise you need to help you doing your U.S. taxes and finding the right people to help you with other things. So it's just something that I just really would recommend to Americans, whether they're moving to Portugal or anywhere, is to really do your financial homework, do planning, as painful as it might be, and really get that under your belt so that you're not, again, surprises aren't fun when you're going through a whole lot of other culture shock. It can be overwhelming. And so the more you can kind of feel like you have a grasp on things and you've got at least a little bit of knowledge on it, I think it helps so much to quell any kind of the anxiety and the other things that are naturally going to happen when you move to a place that's brand new to you. So.
Yeah, that's
of course,
very good
somebody should have
advice.
asked me that on like my 3rd month here, and probably I was, going. If I freaked out over the water faucets in the kitchen, I probably needed an electricity. So,
But really,
but
really good advice. Really good. If I had done my homework thinking about my finance, I would have had the chance to apply for the NHR. At the time, I didn't even know that there was this regime. So so when you live to the last minute, you may have to pay extra, tax, fines, and that's a very good advice. But I see that at least, from the people that I've been speaking to, people are more aware of these specifics. At least those who I speak to,
yeah,
this not there is so much content on the internet as well. Now it's easy to go to find information,
yeah,
and it's good to know that people are being more aware, doing the homework a little harder because it's quite a change in their lives. So yeah, it's important. And also one thing that I really think there is a culture shock, that's for sure, but such a shock, I would say, because usually Americans are seen as people who are, fast paced. There is the saying that the client is always right. So when you go to a place, to a restaurant, I guess they feel that they should be in a way served as they feel that they should be. And here in Portugal, Europe as a whole, it's kind of different, at least in my view. Do
yeah.
you agree with that?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably some of the people I worked with when I worked in the US or in London. Yeah, they would probably be quite surprised about me
Really?
now because I'm I, s- I'm not fully Portuguese in my acceptance of bureaucracy and that sort of thing. But I think I'm better prepared. It's the expectation, like you said, once you learn the expectations of it and and you don't take it personally. And then I always laugh now at people. I don't laugh, but I always laugh to myself. But I think people they get so impatient with things like, oh, you have to go to the bank and you have to wait 2 hours. And I always think to myself, and where else do you have to be? Because it's not like in the US where you're working and you have like big meetings here. But it was, I think you bring up something really important, and it's that whole mind shift. Like when my Portuguese husband moved to Chicago for a while because it was something he was going to get his US citizenship, and then the world was our oyster. We could go anywhere we wanted. And he was really surprised when I went immediately back into American mode. It was like Saturday. Okay, Saturday. Here's what we do. We go to Starbucks, we get our coffee, and then we do all of our errands. And he's like, we do what? And I was like, well, we do our errands. We pick up the dry cleaning, and we do this, and this is what, and we're in the car, and we listen to the radio, and this is what we do. And it was funny because he was kind of like this whole idea of this focused, organized errand doing thing. I'm sure people do it in Portugal because there's certainly type A Portuguese people, but it's not that common to schedule your life that way all the time, every day, every week. And yeah, so it's getting used to that. But it's so nice when people want to move here because they want a more peaceful or relaxed life. Then you have to look at that as the whole package. And so that it wouldn't be peaceful and relaxed if people were running around like crazy people trying to get everything done in the fastest, most efficient way possible. So it's the two sides of the coin, right?
Yes.
So you have
Yes.
to take both sides.
Yes, it's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is Brazil
It's
like that?
it's more. I would say there are more similarities with the American way.
That's what I
There
would
we yeah,
assume.
there
Yeah.
is always thinking about competition. We have to do better than the competition. We are always in a challenge mode. So we have to do
Yeah.
this, do that. We have to be the best one.
Yeah,
And
Marco told me, he said when he moved to the US, he said, everything here is a competition. Getting in the right grocery line is a competition. And I looked at him and I was like, oh yeah, it is. You immediately come with your grocery cart and you start looking to see which is the shortest line. So I saw the US through his eyes very differently which was also
exactly.
interesting.
I think that in my case, of course, I have the Brazilian background with me. And running a business, you always have to try to think ahead. You have to be creative. Try to. You cannot stay still because it's a business. In the end, it's a business. But of course, I did change my mind a little bit. Of course, sometimes I just want to go to a cafe and stay there, just try to have my moment. I would never do something similar in Brazil. I know that's it's impossible.
Yeah,
And
I completely agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I moved to Portugal, I remember that I want to do something. I moved with my wife, and she was the one employed. I came with her. And I want to do something. I didn't want just to stay at home, being unproductive. So I started applying for jobs here. And the first one that I got hired was for Noise, the telecommunication company.
Right.
That's when I really felt the shock, the how people work differently, because I was in a team of Portuguese people, and they were much younger than me. But it was, first of all, I felt that I was in Russia because I couldn't understand anything that they were speaking, really. And Brazilians normally they don't care much about the accent, the way Portuguese is spoken here, but I should have been more prepared for that because I felt like I couldn't do anything because I wasn't understand what he was saying. It was funny, and also this this situations where we just went for a lunch and we stayed there for, I don't know, 2 hours, and I was always like, "Oh, let's move back." And it's, I was feeling really,
Yeah.
really, I don't know. It's funny, Now I think that I was, maybe my Brazilian side was too much um uh, exposed, but it's such a change in my mind now. I'm trying to be more. Everything will be okay in the end. I have to do of course, the planning. It's important not to leave everything for the last minute, but I try not to be so strict to the calendar,
Yeah.
to the appointment. It's a change.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. I mean, I worked also for a Portuguese company for 18 months. It was the people were nice. The company was I was very lucky to work for them. It was a very interesting company. But I think it was the most anxiety producing 18 months of my life because just and I obviously didn't speak the language. It
Yeah.
was a tech company, so everyone spoke English, but of course not on a daily basis. They spoke English to our English speaking clients, but of course the day to day was all in Portuguese. And yeah, the whole I won't even go. The office culture was so incredibly different, and I've worked in the UK where the office culture was again very different. And then I worked in some other companies for several months at a time in Spain, and then short-term projects in other countries where you could get a sense of the office culture. But yeah, Portugal was something completely different, and yeah, it
Yeah.
was very stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. You sum up the new environment with your anxiety. It's a recipe for a breakdown. I can
Yeah,
relate to that.
and I think they all thought I was completely crazy because I was stressed out most of the time, and I'd be like,
Yeah, I agree. I totally relate to that.